High Point University presents A Conversation with Biz Stone and Nito Cabane is a production of UNC-TV in association with High Point University.
Hello, I'm Nito Cabane, president of High Point University. Welcome to this program. As some of you know, we occasionally invite to our campus thought leaders and innovators to visit with our students and to dialogue with them about the world as it is going to be. Not the world as it was, not the world as it is, but as it is going to be. Competitive, demanding, global in nature. Today, I'm delighted to welcome to our campus a man who is the co-founder of Twitter, a man who brought an innovative way for humanity to connect with each other across the world, 140 characters at a time. So please help me welcome the co-founder of Twitter, Mr. Biz Stone. Well, Biz, welcome to High Point University.
Thank you very much.
We're delighted that you're here.
I'm delighted to be
And
here.
I have been looking forward to chatting with you. I want to get into your mind. I want to know how you think, how you learned how to think. I want to learn what allowed you to take risks in life, how you've dealt with failures in life. I've read your book, an excellent book, in which you
even have some favorite parts.
Yes, I do, and I'm gonna share them with our audience today. Things a little bird told me. It's fascinating, and it is exceptionally fascinating that you are young, and we have a lot of students here, and I want them to know that the art of the possible is for all who can think creatively, innovatively, willing to take a risk, and willing to abide by the fundamentals that built this country in the first place. So, Twitter, 320 million users today, everywhere, India, China, USA. 80% of the world leaders tweet, 350,000 tweets per minute, 200 billion tweets a year. That's gotta make you feel good.
We could be doing more tweets. But yes, of course. We had absolutely no expectation of success when we started. Jack and I were just sort of fooling around, you know. It was a side project. Everyone said it was a stupid side project and a waste of time. But we loved it. And that's one of those things where when somebody says, quick, you only have one piece of advice. What is it? I always say emotional investment. Because if you're emotionally invested, in other words, if you love what you're doing and you really want to see it in the world, then you don't hear any criticism. I remember one time when we were early on Twitter, someone was trying to make fun of us, and they wrote a blog post. There was a prominent blogger, and he wrote, "Twitter is like the Seinfeld of the internet. It's a website about nothing." And I thought, Seinfeld's a hit show. This is great. We should put this on our front page as a testimonial. And people were like, you know, he's trying to, take a dig at you. And I was like, no, Seinfeld's huge. And so this is how you feel when you're emotionally invested. And so you don't, it's like water off a duck's back. You don't notice any of these critiques, and you just keep working and working, and it's actually very helpful, because if you were internalizing all of this stuff, if we had been, we would have quit, and Twitter never would have existed. But we didn't hear any of that stuff, and we were just really excited. I remember the day that Jack hooked up. I did all the design and product design, and the day Jack got SMS working, so that if you sent a tweet over SMS, it would show up on a computer, a desktop computer. I got it on my computer, and I instant messaged him on the side. I said, "Come in here, Watson, I need you." Because we were like, that's how we were like, so, I always wanted to be an inventor, and now I have a patent for Twitter, so I'm an actual inventor.
Yes, you are. So how does one become emotionally invested? I mean, what leads, is it the spirit of resilience? Is it the spirit of belief in what you're doing? Is it the notion of watching other people doing it and saying, well, if they can, therefore I can?
Well, I think, no, I think it's more of like a hallucinogenic optimism in what you're doing. You're just kind of a little bit crazy about it, and that's why I mean emotional. I mean, it's like, you know, if something breaks, you feel sick. You know, you get very attached to it, and it has to do with the, you know, just soaring idealism, optimism, a belief that it's going to work. Sometimes you need to, I was sort of the master of this, just faking everything and then backing into it, you know. We built $1 billion brand long before we even had a million registered accounts. And I would make up scenarios in which Twitter could be used for these wonderful, great things, just to get the team excited about what we're building. And those things ended up coming true.
I'm interested to know how the name Twitter came to be. I know that you talked about things like flitter, slitter, jitter.
Yeah. This was before the iPhone came out, but people were starting to, in the U.S., Europe was ahead, but in the U.S., people were just starting to do a lot of text messaging. And it actually had, well, anyways, they were starting to do a lot of text messaging. Things would buzz in your pocket, things would beep, and so we came up with a lot of words that were like suggestive of that kind of feeling. And so, yeah, jitter was one of them. And I didn't like that because it felt like, like you were over caffeinated and you were kind of crazed. And then, through a rhyming dictionary, there was Twitter. And when we pulled out Twitter, I loved it because I love to associate software with life, And I knew what the definition of Twitter was. I don't think the other guys knew at that point. I knew that it had two definitions. One was I had three. Short, trivial bursts of information. That's what, that was what we were. The calls of birds twittering in the trees. And this third definition, which I loved, bursts of laughter. It's that's an older use, but the ladies twittered as the gentleman walked into the tea room, and and I was like, oh, this is just perfect. We got to use this. And the guys were like, I don't know, I don't really like it, but I was designing the product, so I just made it Twitter. And we just went. It was it was just a quick thing. It was like we spent 10 minutes on it, and then Twitter.com, some bird enthusiast owned it, and so we just went with TWTR.com, which was kind of a thing back then, and then later on we bought Twitter.com for $10,000 from the birdie enthusiast, and we were able to joke that we bought the vowels.
And where does the name Biz come from? You were born Christopher Isaac Stone.
Yeah, that's sort of an embarrassing thing. I couldn't say my name when I was little, really little, like 2, not 13. Instead of my full name is Christopher Isaac Stone. I couldn't say Christopher, I said Bizuber. And of course, my family thought that was funny, so they started calling me Bizuber or Biz, shortened it to Biz. And then I had this weird thing where when my father left when I was 4, and I was named after my father, so my mother was like, I don't want to hear that name in this house. And so we'll call you Biz, but you tell all your teachers your name is Isaac Stone. And so I was like, okay, so I was Isaac Stone at school, and I was Biz Stone at home. And, to this very day, if someone were like to say, Biz, look out. I mean, Christopher, look out. If a piano is falling on your head, I'd just be like, that guy's screwed.
Biz, seriously, Inc. magazine
Okay.
named you Entrepreneur of the Year. Time magazine named you one of their 100 most influential people. Vanity Fair put you on the list of the top 10 most influential in information age. GQ, meaning to compliment you, named you Nerd of the Year.
Yeah.
But everybody says, and we feel this morning, you're a nice guy. Tell me this, do nice guys finish first?
Here's the thing about being a nice guy. Some people like to gamble, right? They like gambling because they get a rush when they win. I don't get gambling very much. I know how to play blackjack because the dealer pretty much plays it for you. But I don't get any kind of rush or anything from gambling. I don't really get it. I don't have that gene or something. But I get the same. I get what I think is that feeling whenever I help someone. So whenever I help someone with a problem, or I donate money to a cause, or I do volunteer work, I get that rush. And so really, I'm actually not that good of a guy. Like, what I mean is, because I do all this charity work and philanthropy and stuff, people think, wow, what a nice, great guy that guy is. But I'm actually not that nice. I mean, what I mean is, like, I feel like there's some selfishness in the selflessness. Mm-hmm. And so I'm getting something out of it, so I'm not really that great of a guy.
But if you're getting joy out of it,
yes,
and you're doing good in life, that's a noble quality to have.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's great. I mean, it's so great that it's not a chore at all. It's actually like a hobby and a pastime and something that I very much enjoy.
Yeah. So, correct me if I'm not stating the facts properly. You grew up poor.
Yep.
You did not have much exposure to your father.
Nope.
How did that motivate you in life, and what did it inspire you to do?
What happened was my mother was adopted, and the people that adopted her, they bought a home in this affluent suburb of Boston called Wellesley, and so they left my mother the house. And so what she did, she was high school educated, and she didn't really have a career. She from job to hourly wage job to hourly wage job here and there. But what she did was she, every couple of years, she would sell our house and buy a cheaper house, but keep us in that town because the school system was very good. So by the time I was in high school, we actually had a dirt floor. We moved into I think it was for horses. I think it was a barn. We fixed it up ourselves. So there was that, and then not having a father around, sort of, I guess what I did was I looked for, I went out and found father figures.
You've said some very important things, Biz, and you come across as, a casual, fun guy, but clearly you're an intelligent person who is focused on some very important things. You said to succeed spectacularly, one must be willing to fail spectacularly. You say you can't do anything alone, you must assemble the team. You say the simplest tools can empower people to do great things. You say people fear what they don't know. These may sound like simple statements, but they're pregnant with meaning, and they're doubly pregnant with impact in terms of how our lives are. Let me read a couple of quotes from your book. Because we're getting into something really important now. Now we're getting into...
Is this tombstone quality quotes for me?
No. You're only 41. You're going to live to at least 51. You're fine.
Spectacular failure.
No.
Okay.
No, it gets better as I move in the book. So you say, this is a new book, the determination that led me to create a new sports team, as you said, lacrosse in high school, taught me an important lesson. Opportunity is manufactured. That's a beautiful statement. Opportunity is manufactured. In other words, it doesn't necessarily come to you. You got to go to it. You got to find it. You got to make it.
Yeah, I have a whole thing on that, but yeah, go ahead.
And then you say, my dictionary defines opportunity as a set of circumstances that makes it possible to do something. The world has conditioned us to wait for opportunity, have the good sense to spot it, and hope to strike at the appropriate time. But if opportunity is just a set of circumstances, why are we waiting around for the stars to align? Rather than waiting and pouncing with a high degree of failure, you might as well go ahead and create the set of circumstances on your own. That's exactly what you did, right?
Yeah, that's what I realized I could do, because so when I went to high school, I thought, okay, it seems like being on a sports team is a good way to integrate well into the school. And I was very athletic. And so, but when I was a kid, my mom put me in this program called Boy Rangers, not Boy Scouts. Everybody knows what Boy Scouts is. Nobody knew what Boy Rangers was. We were supposed to be take after Native Americans, and I was Owl Bear because I was wise like an owl and strong like a bear. And I was elected chief of my tribe. And anyway, the point is, I did that every Saturday, and it was also sort of doubly bad because it was supposed to be a father-son thing, and I just went by myself. So the point is, I never did Little League or Pee Wee football or any. All the other kids were learning all the sports when they were younger, and so I got to high school and I didn't. When I went to these tryouts, I was just like completely frozen up because there were so many lines on the basketball court, and I didn't know what they were for. So I sort of held back. Football, the same thing. And then forget about baseball because that was like a religion with the rules, and so I just kind of didn't really try. I sort of held. No coach wanted the guy who was just standing there, so I was like, how can I? What can I do here? And so I found out that we didn't have this. My high school did not have a lacrosse team, and so I was thinking, if I could start a lacrosse team and nobody knew how to play lacrosse, then we'd equally be clueless, and I wouldn't have to worry about it. And so I went to the administration again, and I said, hey, if I can find a coach and enough boys, can I start a lacrosse team? And they were like, sure. Which, again, kudos to my teachers and the administration at my school for allowing me for giving me a pass to do that. So I found a coach out of Babson who played lacrosse, and he was willing to coach us. And then I put up flyers, hey, tryouts for the lacrosse team, and then I was really good at lacrosse, and I became the captain of the team for the whole time I was there, and. So I got what I wanted. I was on a sports team, and when I thought about it later, and when I was writing the book and everything, I realized that, that's what made me realize that opportunity can be manufactured, because I created the circumstances to take the opportunity. So I was first in line to take the opportunity, and anything like that story, you can take it, you can transpose it into any field. So you just break down. That's why I'm saying everyone always thinks of opportunity as something that comes along, but you don't have to wait for it.
You create it.
Yeah.
That's very powerful. In your case, you did not just create opportunity. You create opportunity in spite of your circumstances. In spite of your circumstances.
Yeah, I guess I could have just learned how to play basketball, but now that I think about it, but
Biz, you went to whatever that version of Boy Scouts was.
Boy Rangers.
Boy Rangers. You went to Boy Rangers even though it was a father-son event, and you went alone. That's the kind of human trait that we all should possess. I'm not sure what it was for you. I'm not sure if it was faith. I'm not sure if it was tenacity. I'm not sure if it was ignorance. You just, you did it. But
My
whatever,
mom
whatever
just
that
wanted
is.
to get rid of me on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah.
We learned how to tie knots.
But how did you feel?
Do
Tell
various
us,
feats
tell
of
us how you
strength.
felt when you showed up and everybody else had their dad, and you had to be strong.
It was a little embarrassing. But the guy who ran the thing, I think he either felt bad for me or he liked me or whatever, and so he made sure that I had, was stuff to do and wasn't too lonely when the fathers and sons were supposed to be paired up doing something together. He didn't just let me like sit there by myself, So yeah, Boy Rangers.
All right, so Biz, then you, at one point in your life, and I'm reading from your book, at Google, when word got around
Word got around.
that I was sleeping on the ground,
Oh yeah.
some colleagues passed around a coffee can and raised $800 for me to buy a bed. It was an amazingly kind gesture, you write, and I was touched and I was grateful. However, I had no choice but to misallocate the funds and put them all toward my obscene car payments, which were several months overdue. As for the rest of our furniture, I brought home two multicolor Google beanbag chairs. We sat in those beanbags and slept on the carpet for over a year, till I finally got some dough from Google. Look, Biz, I want especially students to understand that when you see people who arrive at a certain position in life, when people achieve something in life, we sometimes focus on that and we ignore the journey, the beginning of the journey, the middle of the journey. We just focus on the end of the journey.
Yeah.
And it is imperative that I emphasize this morning your upbringing and your job at Google, and the fact that you didn't have money to buy a bed, and the fact that your car payments were overdue, and the fact that your life wasn't quite that easy, albeit now you are jovial and joyous about where you are. But you haven't forgotten your beginning. In fact, when you got a little cash, you bought a house for your mom. And then when you got more cash, you and Livia started a foundation to do good things.
Yeah, it's funny that you say people focus on the end. I'm fond of saying that, 10 years of trying and a lot of good luck will make you look like an overnight success. Because all everyone thinks is like, oh, well, these guys just, started Twitter in a garage and they didn't do anything before that. In 1999, I started an early social network called Xanga, Xanga.com. Little pro tip: don't name your company something that you then have to explain. It's like a joke. If you have to explain it, it's not a good joke. That didn't work out. I was paying my rent with my credit cards, and so we had amassed a mountain of debt by the time I drove cross country to work at Google, and so we didn't have. I mean, everyone thought, oh, you work at Google now, you must be rich, but Google was a startup then, and they didn't pay a lot. They gave you equity, and so it wasn't public, and so I only had enough money. My wife had decided to do volunteer work, and so we had to pay for this apartment, and I had to keep paying these outrageous credit card bills, and the car payments and all that stuff. And the guys, they were just so nice. Those guys were just so generous and nice. But yeah, there's so many failures on the way to finally making it. But the thing is, it depends on how you look at failure. It's really just a lesson learned. It's like, okay, well, we won't do it that way again. It's not. Failure isn't like the end of the line. It's more like great. Okay, so that didn't work.
In fact, this
we'll
is
try
what
it different. Another.
in fact, this is what you say about failures. You say some failures aren't risks that didn't pan out. Some are just plain old mistakes. All we can do is be honest about them and learn from them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I actually, when I hire people, I love it when they say they started a company and they failed, because it means they know what it's like. And, I always tell people, I have a new startup now, and, it's most likely we're not going to succeed. Mm-hmm. I mean, those are the numbers, so they have to be willing. That's the entrepreneurial spirit, I mean, people often celebrate the founders of companies as if they're the sole genius visionary, but the first 10 or 20 people that join you are also entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. They're taking a huge risk too. Mm-hmm. And of course it's not true that you do everything by yourself and you invent all these things by yourself. Mm-hmm. The team works together, and the collaboration is what makes things special.
Sure. What do you have any disappointments about Twitter? How it evolved, where it is?
It's hard to single out disappointments because everything worked out so fantastically. I mean, sure, along the way during the journey there was so many disappointments. We did not build build it correctly from day one, because, as I said, we didn't expect any kind of success, and so we built it pretty much every which way you can do it wrong. We did it wrong. One of our board members, Peter Fenton, likes to say Twitter shot itself in every major organ and somehow managed to survive. And so, all along the way, there seemed to be lots of disappointments, and I was constantly explaining why this broke, and I was always trying to find the positive. My friend Jason Goldman would always accuse me of putting a spin on things, and I said, I'm not putting a spin. I'm just saying to people, the good news is that we won't break in exactly that same way again. We'll break again, but not that exact thing.
Because we learn from our failures.
Yeah, and anyway, so not a bunch, and yeah. So disappointments along the way, not disappointments now. I think Twitter has a huge future ahead of it.
Why was Zuckerberg interested in buying Twitter?
I don't know. We were in bad shape back then.
He asked you. How would you evaluate Twitter? You said $500 million. He said yes. You said no. And later, the New York Times valued it at $30 billion. And unfortunately, the whole market is down. But today, Twitter market value is $11 billion.
We arrived at this, not an office, but like a little tiny conference room. It had a love seat and it had a chair. And Mark went in first and took the chair, which meant me and Ev were going to have to snuggle up on the love seat. And so Mark went in and took the chair. I sat down on the love seat, and Ev looked at Mark and he said, "Do you want me to shut the door or leave it open?" And Mark said, "Yes." And that was weird because we didn't know if he meant what. So Ev said, "I'll just shut it this much." It sort of shut it, not quite. It was very awkward, and the shirt did not help. So then I started trying to make some jokes and stuff, and Mark was I felt like he was looking at me waiting. He's sort of waiting, like, I'll just wait for the stupid guy to stop talking. My jokes were just landing on the ground like dead fish. And I was just like, oh, I forgot to tell the funny part. On the way down, when I said, let's just make up a number that's absolutely crazy, Ev was like, okay, well, what's crazy? And I thought of the biggest number I could possibly think of, the highest number in the world I could think of. I said, how about $500 million? We laughed so hard that we were crying, and it was like an ab workout. I mean, it was just like so ludicrous that it would be worth that. And so then we got in this room, we were in this awkward situation, and Mark said, well, I don't like to talk numbers. And Ev said, well, we don't like to talk numbers either. And then Mark said, but if you say a number, I can say yes or no. And Ev looked at me and he said, $500 million? And Mark said, that's a big number. And I said, you said you say yes or no. And then he said, you guys want to get some lunch? And we went to walk through Palo Alto again. And we were in this huge line to go into the cafeteria. And Mark just went into the line and turned his back to us and waited. And I was like, what is up? Do we gotta wait? And Ev tried to make a joke like, aren't you the boss? Can't you kind of, skip the line? And Mark said, that's not how we do things here. And I was like, Ev, you know what? I just remembered oh my gosh, we got that thing. And Ev was like, oh yeah, the thing. Oh shoot, Mark, we'd love to have lunch, but we got a thing. And he was like, oh, okay. Well, we'll follow up later. And so then Ev and I went into a coffee shop, and we were like, that was weird. And later that day, Mark said, okay, $500 million, mix of cash and stock. After that became our valuation. It was a huge joke. It was a gigantic joke. And then all of a sudden, we were worth $500 million.
Why didn't you say yes? Why didn't you take it? If it was worth $15 million, the guy offered you $500 million, why didn't you say, shucks, we'll take it, go start something different?
We weren't ready. We were still emotionally invested. We were growing like crazy. We had to prove to ourselves that we could build the company, sort out our technical problems, make a company that is self-sustaining, that's profitable. We wanted to do all of those things. We didn't want to sell the company. And so the lesson learned is don't take the meeting if you don't want to sell the company, don't take the meeting. So Ev wrote a very polite letter explaining why, we still feel like we're only 1% into this journey. We want to see it through. Thank you for seeing us. Thank you for the offer. I mean, because it is insulting to take a meeting like that and then turn down, a ludicrous number. So anyway, that's what happened. It was all a joke.
Did you ever talk to Mark Zuckerberg again?
He stopped sending me happy birthday notes on my wall after that. So I haven't really, not much.
Okay, so Twitter, changed our world in so many ways. Does it depress you that the people with the followers?
Nothing depresses me.
Well, but the people with the largest following are, Katy Perry and Mr. Bieber.
It's funny, Mr. Bieber. It's funny. I thought celebrities would never use Twitter because they're celebrities. The whole point of a celebrity is that you have limited access to them. You can watch them in movies, and that's it. And that's their value. And then, so I was like, there's no way celebrities are going to ever use our thing. And then all of a sudden, all these celebrities started using our service. And that just brought in all their fans and everything. And, it's so funny because all of these great things just happened, and people thought we had some master plan. Like, how did you get all these celebrities to use the service? Did you pay them? Did you give them equity? And we were like, no, we didn't do anything. They just used it. At one point, one of these celebrities, asked for a meeting with us, and said that he really wanted to. He thought he deserved equity in the company, and I was thinking, like, why? He didn't build anything. And he was like, I use the service. You should give me equity in the company. And I said, do you use Google? And he said, yeah. And I said, did they give you equity? Because I was thinking, like, we're paying a lot of money to send messages on your behalf to millions of people. That's costing us money. And you're telling us we should compensate you for that? Like, he didn't like me after that.
Here's the power of Twitter. It's an illustration. This is from the New York Times, maybe a year and a half ago. So this lady, whose name is Justine Sacco, 30 years old at the time, senior director of corporate communications at IAC, was traveling from New York to South Africa. And along the long journey of 13, 14 hours, she tweeted out perhaps some inappropriate comments that were not accepted in favor.
No.
Sacco boarded the plane. It was an 11-hour flight, actually, so she slept. When the plane landed in Cape Town and was taxiing on the runway, she turned on her phone, and she got a text from someone she hadn't spoken to since high school. "I'm so sorry to see what's happening." Sacco looked at it and was baffled. Well, what happened was, this young lady's name was Hannah, her friend. She said, "You are the #1 worldwide trend on Twitter right now." And by the time Sacco had touched down, tens of thousands of angry tweets had been sent in response to her joke. And her friend said, "Your tweet lives on forever."
Not your career. Here's two things about that. First of all, if anyone has ever tried to make a joke over an email, they've probably had the experience of someone writing a furious email back, because jokes don't really work in email. They're nuanced. You have to be face to face, and somebody might read them the wrong way and then get really pissed off at you. So if you're gonna write a joke over a text message or an email or a tweet or something like this, you have to be very clear that you're making a joke. And second of all, she was a head of communications. And so she should have probably known that what she was tweeting was not something that the head of a communications of an internet company should be tweeting. That baffled me. Like, what was she thinking? And but yeah, it does show the power of how something can spread so incredibly rapidly on Twitter. In fact, that was my biggest aha moment. Aside from the "come in here, Watson, I need you," this is when I got chills and realized that we had built something new and something that did not exist in the world. This was in Austin, Texas, in 2007, and there weren't that many people using Twitter at the time. A lot of people thought there were a lot. There weren't. People thought we had tens of millions of registered users, and we had less than 50,000 at the time. But we went with that. When people asked us how many registered users we had, we said, "Oh, well, numbers aren't important. What's important is that people are getting value out of the service." Anyway, we went to Texas, and something there happened. First of all, we went to this conference called South by Southwest Interactive. It's gotten very, very big, but it used to just be a bunch of nerds from the Bay Area getting together to talk about what they're working on and mingle and party and stuff like that. And first of all, I noticed almost everybody. When I looked at it from the back of the audience at various sessions, I noticed Twitter was up on everyone's screen. And I was like, oh my gosh. Two things happened. One thing that happened was I was in the back of one of these conferences, and all of a sudden everyone just got up and left 10 minutes in. It was like someone had announced something over the PA system, but there was no announcement. They just all left. I found out later it was because people were saying on Twitter that the thing going on across the hall was really cool, way better. And they just, I mean, the guy delivering that panel must have been like, what the hell's going on? But the really big thing that happened, which amazed me, was there was a guy at a pub, and he simply wanted to talk with some peers about what he was working on. And the place was too loud and it was too crowded. And so he sent out a tweet that said, hey, if you want to talk shop, we're gonna go over to this other pub down the street. And in the 8 minutes it took him to walk to that place, it had filled to capacity and there was a line around the block. And when I heard that story, that's when I got chills, because I realized that in nature we have things like this. We have, you can think about a flock of birds, a bunch of individuals, and then as they're approaching something like a telephone pole or a tree, they just move around it together as one individual and then go back to being individuals again. And it looks so incredibly choreographed and it's beautiful and it looks like they practiced it a million times. But the mechanics of flocking are very rudimentary. It's simply one bird looking at his neighbor's shoulder and following in kind, and it sort of cascades from there. And I realized that there was no technology that enabled humans to, in an instant, behave as one organism and then go back to being individuals again. And I thought, oh my God, this was just a party environment, but what if it had been something serious? And that's when I just realized that we had created something big. And as soon as we got back from Texas, that's when we actually formed Twitter Incorporated. Up until that point, it was just a side project that, again, we had no expectations for. But that was just an amazing moment for me.
Okay, our time is almost up, so I want to ask you a series of questions for which I beg you to give me just
short answers?
Sentence answers, yes. Tell me why there aren't more women in the C-suites of technology companies, your opinion.
I don't know. I don't know why there's not. Like I said, I grew up in a family. It was all women in my house. It was my mother and my three sisters. I sort of, and then I went into publishing, book publishing. That's a whole funny story in itself. And women there were a lot of women who were in charge there. They're very intimidating, dressed all in black women in New York City who were the bosses. And so I sort of just assumed women were in charge, And my wife is really smart, and she's like my secret weapon. I ask her stuff, and then I go to work and I say it, and I look good. But I don't. Yes, for Olivia. So I don't get it. I don't know why. I'm not sure why. I mean, I guess I'm assuming it's, like cronyism or something like that, or just. I mean, I'm not a woman, so I can't speak for them. But there's a whole set of things that we as men don't even think about that they have to think about, When I talk to women, they're like, you don't worry about walking to your car in a parking lot at night. When I do it, there's several things on my mind. So, I don't know, I mean, that was a rambling answer. I don't have a nice soundbitey answer for why there's not more women in the C-suites in the tech industry, other than there should be, and it's a known problem, and I know that there are people who are working on it. Even when I was just about leaving Google, there was a whole team. They wore pink ribbons, and they were assigned to just hire women, just find women and hire them, because women are generally smarter than men.
What is some advice you would give college students about how they might start a business, how they might take some risks, how they might deal with failure, how they might deal with success?
Well, I always say you just have to kind of try. You just have to jump in and try something. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like, you got to start somewhere, basically. So, I don't think I've ever done anything where we actually built what we set out to build. I mean, we started there, but then we edited away things and we moved in a different direction and we built something else. So you just have to, and I also think a really key thing, and this is probably the most difficult thing above building something or anything else, is finding the right person to work with, someone who complements, someone who's strong where you're weak and weak where you're strong. Ideally, someone who's smarter than you, so you're trying to level up. That's key, finding that person to work with and bounce ideas off of. But my advice for starting a company is just to like start something, build something, a prototype, anything, even if it's just to get it out of your system. Like, well, that was a bad idea. I don't like it. I'm not going to do it.
What are you working on now?
I'm working on a new search engine for the future of search. I don't think no one's fundamentally reimagined search in 2 decades. Everyone figures we got it all sorted out already, but we don't. There's all kinds of people working on artificial intelligence. How about just intelligence? There's a lot of people in the world, and there's an old aphorism or saying that most people die with their stories in them. And I take that to mean most people are walking around with experience, opinions, all kinds of things that they know that other people don't know. So we're now living in the most connected world ever. They redid the 6 degrees separation study. It's now 3.8 degrees of separation. So it's 4 degrees of separation now because of mobile and social. And so we're building a kind of a search engine where the search is familiar. You type in a box, you type your question in a box, and the engine is people. So what we do is instead of a web search engine which indexes documents and matches your query with the most relevant document, what we do is we match your query with a person who's been there and done that already. So it might not be an expert, it might not be a dermatologist, but it will be someone who has had that exact procedure done and can answer your question. Because there is a % of queries that are better answered by a person. How many of us have said in this day and age, why can't I just get to a real person? I'm stuck on a phone tree. I'm being sent to help center. I just want a real person to tell me if it's a good idea to bring my kid to Yellowstone Park, or if it's a terrible idea. Well, we won't have fun. And so that's what we're working on. We're working on sort of building the future of search, and it fits in with, and in the interest of time, I won't go into this, but I have a vision of what I'd like humanity to look like in 10,000 years. And I'm not going to do it all by myself, but so what I'm doing now is I'm working backwards from that vision to see what I can do, what little thing I can do to help push. And since I'm good at this kind of stuff, this is what I'm doing. I have other things I want to do too, but that's what we're building. It's called Jelly. It hasn't launched yet.
Yeah.
It's going to launch in late February, early March.
Is it true that this is Entrepreneurship magazine quoted this, and I want you to verify it, that every board meeting you had, you began by writing on the board total number of volunteer hours, total number of dollars donated?
That's what I do, yeah. I start every board meeting with how many hours we've volunteered since the last board meeting, our company. And also money donated. And a lot of people think you're crazy. You're a venture-backed company that doesn't make money. How can you donate? How can you justify donating money? And I say, because it's marketing. It's marketing. Jelly is a company that it's people helping other people. So helping people is in support of our brand. So if we donate money to Product Red to help end AIDS in our generation, then that's marketing money.
That's very interesting, Biz.
And also, I believe, public service, like I said before, I enjoy it, and I think it's a wonderful thing for companies to do. As a group, it's a bonding experience. It's doing something good. People like to know that they're going to work at a company that, it does good. It does well, but it does good too.
That's why maybe you said in Forbes magazine, through the compound impact of altruism, I came to understand that people are doing philanthropy wrong. People generally think about charitable work the wrong way. They think that when they're older and comfortable, they'll give some amount of money to something, but that's not the way to do it. You say the way to do it is to get involved as early as possible, because even if it's just to volunteer work or to give $5, the impact you'll have over your lifetime is far greater than anything you could possibly do if you wait until you think you're comfortable. You'll never really feel you're comfortable enough to give away your money. But if you start now and start doing some volunteer work, donating a little bit here and there over the next 40 years, you'll have a huge amount of impact and you'll feel great about yourself. In our audience today, we have some 20 university and college presidents from across North Carolina. I think to the one that agree with you, as I certainly would state boldly and proudly, that our students collectively and individually of our campuses play a huge role in the communities in which we live. Hyper University, for example, where our students give about 110,000 volunteer hours. They raise about $1 million a year to give to the community, High Point, North Carolina. And I suspect that's true on all these campuses represented today. What is the future of technology? Let me just preempt that by telling you that Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple Computer, is actually on our National Board of Advisors at High Point. He's an adjunct professor at High Point. He comes every year and spends a day with our students. And he tells me that, in answer to my question, will the computer ever take over what you and I do? He said, well, maybe when the computer can smell and can feel, then look out. What is your view of the future of technology? On the one hand, we're the most connected as a population we've ever been. On the other hand, we're almost as alienated as we've ever been. We no longer have this high touch, and in a college campus, you see 5 students sitting together in the restaurant having lunch, but each of them is looking at their iPhone.
Oh, I know. I saw a family once looking. They were standing on a bluff in California, and there was a beautiful sunset, and they were all looking at their phones. Presumably other people's sunsets on Instagram. It was quite a thing. For me, the future of technology on a very high level is that it disappears. It's there, but it disappears from our lives. Technology should amplify humanity. More precisely, it should amplify humanity's best traits. It should allow us to do good things in the world. It should help save us time so that we can be with our family more. It should make it easier to donate money or time or whatever. It should amplify the innate empathy and goodness within humanity, and it should also it should get out of our way.
So at Hype University, we have a daily calendar that we send to all of our alumni, students, and friends. Today, the calendar has a quote by David Kolb. This is what it says: "You teach some by what you say, you teach more by what you do, but most of all, you teach most by who you are." It's clear to me you're a good guy, Biz. You've done good things. You continue to do good things. We're delighted that you're here with us today. We wish you great things with Jelly and other ventures. And thank you for coming and opening your heart and sharing with us. Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you.
Mr. Biz.
Thanks for having me. Love this place.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC TV.